please send me something on the chat line. We have our team monitoring the audio quality. I hope we'll be all right. A key element of this session is business continuity. That's the key focus. I also therefore have a second machine, a second connection. So I hope it'll be all right. And if we do have downtime, hopefully it'll be very short before we exceed your tolerance limit. So thank you so much for joining in today. This session is being brought to you by EduQuest Online Academy, which is Singapore based. I'm just in the interest of sound quality going to shut off the camera for a moment. EduQuest is Singapore based. It's an approved trainings organization under the Skills Future Singapore SSG, earlier known as the Singapore Workforce Development Agency. They offer competency-based training programs under the Singapore Workforce Skills Qualification, WSQ, specialize in delivering quality training programs, assessments, analyzing training needs, structured roadmaps for corporate needs, offering both training and consulting solutions and upgrade opportunities, and intention, of course, being to create overall value for the organizations which take the services. We'll also, at the end of the session, have Remy Kung join in, who is the head of sales for EduQuest. He's been active in this field for 20 years and has assisted numerous organizations in their quest for excellence. From my point of view, I'm honored to present this. So thank you so much for joining in. I also see on this call quite a few people who are eminently capable of presenting this webinar themselves. So I hope you'll get value. John Robinson from Inoni, Ron Kemps from the US. Ron, it must be really early morning for you, possibly. Chris Miller, thank you so much from Australia. It may be pretty late in the day for you, Chris, or the night. So as I said, all of you could be here in my place teaching this instead. So thanks very much. And I need to return the courtesy to you at some stage, probably. I'm just going to start the recording. Just give me 1 second. Yes, we are good. Okay. So thank you once again. So brought to you by EduQuest along with FQA UK. We also are promoting a program which is FQA certified. So a bit about that later as we get into this presentation. I believe all participants are auto muted, possibly, so I'm not hearing any sound. So I hope that's good. If it's not muted, then please do so. If there is a bandwidth issue, it's likely to be yours rather than ours. At least that's our learning and our understanding so far. I, about a month ago, month and a half possibly, presented to an organization that has 450,000 people worldwide. And they are an IT company, in fact, and they assured me that if there's a bandwidth issue, it's likely to be on the other end. So hopefully we'll get past that. Jumping straight into the presentation. Aparna Garg has had, unfortunately, a BCP issue today. There's a severe medical emergency in someone she knows very well. So our thoughts are with her. So to that extent, I am just going to auto-introduce myself, and I'll try and not keep it very long anyhow. So I'll skip this part. I do have a slide coming up. We'll try and wind up my presentation about 4:10. This is India time at this point in time. Sorry, Singapore time. Yes. So wind up at 4:10 Singapore time, and then turn it over to Remy for his remarks. My background, by background, a chemical engineer and an MBA, went straight into financial services. My first job after my business school was Citibank. Spent about 10 years there, 5 years with Standard Chartered. Agilent is a HP subsidiary. It was promoted by HP. It's an independent entity, high technology, and American Express. I cut my BCM teeth in American Express. That was just after Y2K. And when I visited my CFO's office in the trade center area, he actually said that had the plane not changed directions, they would have probably come and hit his office rather than the trade center. He could literally see the plane approaching him at about the 32nd floor where he was. So for Amex, BCM was very real. It's a credit card business. It's a travel business. No one will be waiting 3 days to make their travel or credit card transactions. So that was where I cut my teeth. And in about 2004, In Amex, where I was based, we decided to get ourselves BCM certified as an organization. And at that time, of course, there was no BCM standard. So we used the ISO to 9000 at that time to get BCM certified. And our consultants were TUV. So our certification body was TUV. And they said they are unaware of anyone who's done this globally. So I was left with the impression that we at Amex were the first in the world to get BCM certified, but using the 9001 standard. Been full time doing this since 2006, approximately, been 15 good years. And wrote a book last year with my colleague Daman, who our chief operating officer. He's just gone freelance recently, but still working with us. But now we don't tell him what to do. He decides for his own. That's the key difference. Jumping straight into the presentation. As an organization, we are more into the risk areas, which is why we are partnering with EduQuest. They are deeper into the domain and Southeast Asia as a geography. Won various awards. We are a four-time winner of the Service Provider of the Year regional awards, not the global award, but the regional awards. And because of that, also incorporated into the BCI Hall of Fame as a repeat winner. So let's come to what you have come to listen to. Obviously, what I said so far is a byproduct. What does it take to be resilient? So what do we mean by the word resilience? Resilience means bouncing back. You don't go down for too long. You bounce back to your original state. And that's the ultimate goal, that if something did go wrong, we are able to very quickly put things back the way they should have been, and to be able to put the incident behind us. And after a few days, even people forget. I mean, it's understandable that things go wrong, even more so in COVID-19 times. So that is the ultimate objective, that we are able to, even if ideally something doesn't go wrong, but if it does go wrong, very quickly it gets fixed and we get back to the original state. Resident in a crisis. What's a crisis? An uncertain situation, a situation which we don't know how it will go, often creeping up quite fast. Basically, huge amount of uncertainty. Need someone to take charge. Need someone to kind of, in some ways, control our destiny. And COVID-19 is an ideal example. It's something where there is currently no end timeline. The Google CEO, Sundar Pichai, apparently in an interview yesterday said, in his view, it's going to take till the end of the year. Others have different estimates. Clearly, by the time the world gets vaccinated, it's going to be many, many months. So we are in a crisis situation. We've been in a crisis situation, and this crisis situation ain't ending fast. So recognizing that, what do we do now? We learn from what we've done so far. And my main intent here is to promote not BCM, even though the session is BCM, but BCM plus, more than just BCM. And therefore, my emphasis is on organizational resilience. We've actually run a course some time back, and this is from a webinar that we did to promote that course. So, what comprises organizational resilience? The jury is still out on this. Different people have different views. This is our view, and for all you know, it will be an evolving view. So, by all means, it would be great if you would like to check out this webinar on our website. I do have a link later on that. Asset management, BCM, crisis, a whole bunch of things. So we've got about 20 different disciplines in this chart. And who's to say that this is complete? Perhaps more should be added out there. So ultimately, this is where we would be looking to be heading. And I run quite a few podcasts. I've done about 6 podcasts so far where I interview senior people in the BCM world. Generally, the common refrain from everyone has been that in this uh, COVID-19 situation, what really worked for us is that we came together as a team. It wasn't his job, his job, his job, BCM team job, security's job. It was us together as a leadership team. And this was a common theme I heard all through. We together pulled together and we made it happen. And we just said, forget about all these turf issues. It's our job. And in some ways, it sounds as if we've already unconsciously implemented organizational resilience, maybe not through a formal process, but operationally we made it work. So that even validates the concept of organizational resilience, that let's really work together as a team and do what's needed. Many organizations may not have reached perfection, But the fact is things worked, and that's what's important. And now we can always build upon that to go further. Now, in the same webinar that I'm mentioning, Daman ran a survey. Daman is the gentleman who you could see on the previous screen. He's the one who presented the session. He ran a survey and he asked people, which of these domains do you feel are relevant to organizational resilience? These were the results. So 92% said business continuity is a part of organizational resilience. 90% said therefore crisis management, and so on and so forth till financial control management. I'm not covering all 20 in the previous ones, just a sample. And the reason is I want to focus on these three. This is what Educast is looking to offer. This is what we offer. And by chance, at least per that survey, they were the biggest three. So that's what I'm going to be focusing on in this session primarily. Let's look at organizational resilience from the perspective of the ICOR. ICOR looks fundamentally at crisis management. Just a second, please. So I'm getting a call from one of my team on this session, and therefore sounds as if there may be some background noise.
Sorry, we cannot see the screen, only the...
Yes. I just got a message and I hope they'll now move. So
Yeah, now it's good. Thank you very much.
apologies for that. Okay. So this is the full ambit of what we currently have as organizational resilience, at least what we are proposing at this point in time, what we cover in our course. It's a 3-day session, 20 disciplines here. This is what on the same webinar people told us was their assessment and understanding of what should comprise organizational resilience, and therefore picking up the top three, 90% plus. If you need to be resilient, almost certainly you'll need these. Validating it with the ICOR structure. ICOR has their own pillars of organizational resilience. The first one is BCM and COO, Continuity of Operations, as often is the word used in the US. Crisis management and communications, again, there. Risk is kind of out here, and I will probably need to engage with them to ask, is this an order of importance, or is this probably, as I look at it, it seems to be purely in order of alphabetics, as simple as that, which is why B and C are on top. To me, risk is fundamental because risk sets the bedrock of everything. Each of these standards needs risk assessment. And for all of them, the logic is as always, prevention is better than cure. So think through things in advance, fix them in advance, and you probably won't have an issue at all. If you do have an issue, it's much diluted and therefore much easier to control. And so again, it kind of validates our thought process that these should be the fundamental. If you really want to attack organization resilience and eventually make yourself resilient and cover these all, my sense is these are the three smart ones to start with. So that's what we're focusing on here. So quick poll coming up. Would you like to learn more about organizational resilience? And I'm going to now open the poll. Give you about a minute to do this. So launch the poll. So I'm going to start closing it now. So most people said yes. One said no, and that's fair. I'm sure you have your reasons. To me, what's interesting about organizational resilience, it's still a gray area. We're still getting our hands around it, still trying to understand what the components are, what should be the focus. So it's evolving, exciting. And as I said, I get the sense that in COVID-19, a lot of this has actually happened perhaps unconsciously rather than consciously. So it wasn't a practical application of organizational resilience principles, someone pulling out the standard and looking at the standard and seeing what it says, but just jumping in as a team and ensuring that. So I see it somewhat like maybe a sports field. Take any sport of your choice. Could be football, which I believe is the most popular in the world. Ron, for you, it could be baseball. Maybe in Australia and India, it could be cricket. Take the key issue is to make sure that we have covered. The key issue could be just to make sure that we have covered the full spectrum. So is the sports field fully covered? And therefore, there are two things that have to be avoided. One is that we shouldn't necessarily have two people colliding, as very often happens in organizations, turf issues. No, this is mine, though this is mine, and we are kind of fighting away for that space. In the process, we take our eye off the ball, and in a soccer context, someone kicks it away and goes scores a goal. Not a smart thing to do. The other issue is leaving things in no man's land. This is yours, not me, not me. And again, we've dropped the ball, and again, someone scores the goal or kind of makes the home run, as the case may be. So to me, that's what it's all about. Through organizational resilience, let's make sure that we've covered everything as it should be covered. And what should be covered may vary for each organization. So to that extent, it's not for us to say what's right. Everyone will have their own model, their own priorities. But fundamentally, let's make sure that nothing falls between the cracks, and let's make sure that nothing is contentious, where we are losing time and sleep fighting over it and missing the forest for the trees. We did a paper just as lockdown started about what it takes to get past this. It's on our website, coreconsulting.ae. And we kind of use the same principles here, which are now formalized slightly more through organizational resilience. Respond, it's a crisis, COVID-19. Use smart crisis management principles. Respond, communicate with your people, at least get past this, put this behind you, get past it. Start to recover your critical operations, and that's what business continuity management says. Do what's really, really important. Ignore what's not important. That way you can align your resources to the immediate needs and be able to make sure that at least we move forward with our basic requirements and principles as they are. So at least our key interested parties and key stakeholders are more at ease. We are meeting their needs, and over a period of time start to figure out what you can do for the others. So eventually you cover it 100% in a prioritized manner. Consolidate. Yes, we've recovered, great. We've restarted yet, but are we out of the woods? No, we aren't. There's all sorts of chaos going on. It's not just COVID-19. It's floods. It's natural disasters elsewhere. It's cyber. It's mental health issues. A huge number of other things are going down at the same time. So let's not be complacent that we've recovered and we're good. We aren't. Any surprise can hit us tomorrow. Let's think through that proactively. Let's put in place good proactive risk management. Think backwards and try and prevent or mitigate things even before they happen. So if they do happen, they happen much less, at a much, much more manageable impact, and we can get past them much faster. And I go back to the earlier diagram that I'd shown, and the last one out here is strategic management, strategic planning, and that's probably what we need at this stage. Okay, we are through the woods. We are all right. We've restarted. We are doing all the right things, but what's ahead? So please use this opportunity as think time. You had plenty of think time, to be honest, amazing amount of time to plan and think. So put in place that strategic plan management. Now what do you do to accelerate? So when things start becoming okay, you're out there much faster. You get ahead of the pack, almost as you see in the photograph back there. It's a runner just poised at the running line. As soon as the gun fires, he runs and leads the way all the way through right till the end. So these are the 4 phases that we suggested. First one, which is all we have time for today, to be honest. We don't have a lot of time. So again, it's going to be a very brief intro into BCM, but perhaps BCM from a different point of view. So what is business continuity? That's what business continuity is. I need to get to office today, but I'm stuck. What do I do now? There's critical work happening. I owed someone something. They're going to be upset. So that's BCM for you. In a more lighter vein, you psych yourself up for an operation or your father's operation. So he wasn't keen. You've kind of got him there, convinced him that is a smart thing to do. It'll add 10 good years to his life. And you reach the hospital, you take leave and you prepare and do everything. And then they say, oh, by the way, sorry, we're out of blood. So why don't you come back day after? A good chance you're never going back there. In fact, I mean, you may uh, mention this to every one of your friends and tell them to never go there also. So on a more lighter vein, I hope this never happens to anyone. But I mean, just think through the emotional aspect of something like this actually happening. One of the most tragic and I would say unacceptable cases of business continuity in action, a half marathon getting cancelled because their service provider did not provide the drinking water. It was a hot day in the UK. And what does it take to enter a half marathon? Probably 6 months of practice. You book your visa, you book your flights, you take leave from office, you practice each and every day. Just do the maths on the number of man hours. Reach there a few days earlier so that you can acclimatize. All set, and in the morning you go there and they say, sorry, race cancelled. A real incident, sadly. If there are any runners in this session, you'll know what I'm talking about. So the runners reached there, told the race had been cancelled. They said, no way, I don't care. I'm running anyway. They said, it's a health hazard. They said, it's my problem. I'm taking the risk. So you're off the hook. I'm running. So they started to run. The police and tried to stop them on the tracks, tried to block them and not allowed them to run, but there were too many of them. So they just said, forget it, we are running. The residents were nice enough in the town. They came out with their water jugs and the water bottles and the glasses of water, lined the streets. It was a really hot day to give water to the runners. So great show of camaraderie. Um, so the race didn't happen. Some people ran for the sake of running. No one completed. There was no winner. But what does this say about the organizers and about the people behind this and the absolute colossal waste of man hours, utterly unprofessional and unacceptable. So that's business continuity from a different point of view as a consumer. And therefore, if you can understand BCM as a consumer, I hope you can understand the implications of your actions as a service provider. RBS suffers payment disruptions. Okay, not good. Let's assume you were about to open an account with RBS. It's in your neighborhood and you said, great, why should I bank with this other bank halfway across town? Let me open up my account here. And then you see, not only is it a payment disruption, but this little thing out here, the second time that RBS has had a payment issue. Uh-oh, now this is serious. And what happens if it happens a third time? 3 lines are more enough to establish a pattern. There's no way you're opening with RBS. So lack of business continuity actually can push your customers elsewhere. They can leave you and go somewhere else, and someone who's planning to come to you may never come. So to me, it's not a defensive strategy about just protecting and restarting. It's actually as important as a business line, as a revenue initiative, as a new product, because all you need to do is have the trust and faith. And if you have the trust and faith, then that's all you need. The rest is all partnership and goodwill. It's my view. And if I use travel as an example, historically, perhaps before COVID-19, um, at that time, it was my assertion that if I had to pay 10% more for an airline, so there's an airline I know which praises itself on time reliability. That's their slogan. Deal with us, we're on time. Vis-a-vis another airline which does not have an on-time reputation. Personally, I would pay 10% more for the on-time airline. I don't want to reach delayed. I don't want to miss my meeting. If I'm going on personal travel, I don't want to miss my tour if the plane lands late. I don't want to go a day earlier just to mitigate the chances of the airline letting me down. I'd rather go in a planned manner with a reliable airline. If it means I need to pay 10% more airfare, so be it, not an issue at all. So in my view, BCM is much more than what it's traditionally been seen. It should be aggressive. It's a revenue generator, and it can actually, it's a very smart thing to do long term. Another real example, unfortunate but real. KFC runs out of chicken in a logistics fiasco. Again, this was in the UK. Interestingly, this happened because they moved to DHL. Till they were not with DHL, they were fine. As soon as they moved to DHL, they had this issue. There was apparently only one warehouse in the country. They were just not enough able to stock the outlets. So imagine it's Friday night. Your kids are all excited. For the last 3 days, they've been very, very keen and talking about Friday evening. We'll all go together and have a good time and have a great meal. And you reach there and KFC says closed. Sorry, why? Because the chicken never landed up. Ridiculous. It's not just the loss of revenues and profits and embarrassment to KFC. It went on social media. So I'm showing this more from a social media impact point of view. Burger King got into the act, haha, KFC. Now let's have some fun at KFC's expense. 203 likes, 89 people tweeting. Well, it's starting to get serious. People started contacting the police. The police said, what's it to do with us? I mean, sort it out. This is not a law and order issue. 18,000 likes, 10,600 people are tweeting about this. Now, what does this do for KFC? In that area, in the UK, in Europe, across the world, it's on social media, it's everywhere. So again, implications of not having BCM in place, certainly loss of revenues and profits, pressure on cash flows, reputation, embarrassment, explanations, cost and effort in bringing things back to normal. What do you think KFC would have needed to do to put this behind it? Maybe a campaign, maybe some offers, maybe some discounts. Just get the people back in, show them seeing is believing, let them see that everything's all right. How long would this have impacted negative sales? 2 weeks, a month, 2 months, 6 months? Who knows? Your guess is as good as mine. But the point is, it's a needless cost and effort, and you'd rather not do it, and you'd rather have got things right in the first place. Again, good risk management, prevent it from happening, good business continuity. If something did happen, at least have a good backup plan. So within reasonable timelines, before things get out of hand, you're back up and running. It's okay. It's an incident. It happened. Few days later, we forget about it. We are friends and end of story. Good situation. In this case, what happened is a lot of people ended up going to a KFC competitor, which was not at that time very well known, loved it, and said, why didn't we know this earlier? Thanks, KFC, because thanks to you, I discovered this new place, which is great. And they have a better menu. The prices are better. The taste is better. And I'm not going back to KFC at all. So it's not just short-term loss of that transaction because people ate that meal somewhere else and you lost that meal and its revenues. It's permanent. I just like the other entity more. I'm not coming back. So again, it's lack of business continuity that pushed your customers away. Other implications, certainly we've spoken about some of these. Management responsibility, corporate governance. We say the business of business is to be in business. The business of business is not to have downtime and not be able to perform and meet your commitments. That's ridiculous. So huge corporate governance expectations, director liability, expectations, shareholder commitment. You owe it to your stakeholders to be operational. Could be regulatory expectations in certain industries, certainly financial services. Personal considerations. Would you like to be one of those KFC employees whose family is laughing at them, whose friends are joking, the butt of jokes, and you're going around explaining to everyone what happened and why? It's not a nice feeling. So good reasons. Moving on. And lastly, I may just mention insurance. So John, for example, on this call has a great product where he's able to offer insurance, able to offer business continuity for entities, and that is actually promoted by the insurance company because they feel much safer that if my client had good business continuity in place, they're probably not going to claim much. They're not going to have much downtime. And therefore, my insurance payouts can be much less. And therefore, if you have good business continuity, I'm willing to give you better rates. I know of a real insurance entity that wanted to sell out some of its stake to a Japanese entity. They implemented business continuity and got a much better valuation. So they got a much better premium for their stake because they had business continuity in place. So lots of good reasons other than the usual, it's a protective defensive strategy. I think it's much, much more than that. And lack of business continuity is a self goal. I mean, why spend all that time and effort and then throw it all away? Personal considerations. Sorry, we are closed. What does that mean for employees in this organization? No bonus, delayed salaries, salary cuts, no salaries, job losses, less bonus, smaller job. COVID-19 is a great example. So again, many organizations have done well during COVID-19. luckily they were prepared and they don't have this problem. So again, support business continuity for business official purposes, support business continuity for your own purposes. I don't care why you support it, but it's a smart thing to support. So please do that. Okay, quick little bit need to accelerate. So a long-winded definition of business continuity, which I'm not going to spend much time on, but critically, what do we do in BCM? And you will have the slide, so you can take through it, take it, go through it yourself. Critically, what do we need BCM for, and what do we do? Two critical elements: think through in advance what can go wrong, put in place plans to fix it, as we call it, BCM recovery strategies, and then build plans to activate those recovery strategies, really detailed step by step, who has to do what. So that's your different way of doing it. And I liken it maybe to a chef. Um, he has this great dish that everyone loves, but on certain days he runs out of the critical ingredient, and therefore he has to give a similar customer experience, similar tasting, meeting the objective, but probably not identical. The ingredient is different. It won't be 100% the same, but it's pretty similar. It meets the objective. His customer's happy, and and he's kind of built market share. In fact, maybe his customer was excited. Oh, you know what? He did a different dish for us. It was even better. So if you don't have a critical ingredient, you can't use your plan A. So your standard SOP won't work. But because the chef was smart, he planned in advance. He created a different dish, very similar tasting, through different process with another ingredient, and therefore he's got his backup plan. So the day he runs out of the critical thing, supply chain, I mean, the world is suffering from supply chain due to COVID-19. He implements his plan B, and he gives another dish which customers also love. So he's got his BCM in place. So the critical thing is think through what can go wrong and put in place your backup plan as to how you would still respond within critical timelines. And that's the key part. BCM is common sense. BCM is nothing you've never heard before. I think what I said right now is nothing you're hearing for the first time. What makes BCM different is this advanced planning and working to a timeline. So perhaps if I use an example of a spare car tire in a car, you have everyone has, most of us have, I would say everyone has a extra tire, and you probably keep it filled, etc. But how many of you have actually set a time that you want to be able to replace the tire in without the tire actually getting punctured, jacked up the car, taken off the tire, put in the spare tire, tested that it works, and seen the timeline, and then seen are you willing to do it in that timeline. So the key element of business continuity is planning in advance, doing it to timeline, and then testing that it works. Not a new concept, doing this for ages, but I would say the rigor around it is what makes it different, and that's rigor is the magic in business continuity. You need a structured and a formal implementation of this common sense. Okay. As I said, we won't have time in this session to go very detailed. Mostly what we have here is what I've said so far. What can go wrong? Let's put in place a smooth, professional, crisis-free response. Exercise and test it, and ongoing review, maintain, and improve. Raise the bar. If you took 15 minutes to fix the wheel this time, try and do it in 10, and then do it in 6 and 5. And well, you may not be able to do it in 30 seconds. So you need to stop somewhere, but you can do other improvements as you go along. The cycle, program management, like any implementation, not just BCM, any implementation, think it through, set it up, agree your timelines, stakeholders, governance, roles, responsibilities, get the knowledge, training, get all set. Issue a policy that sets direction, that sets the organization what the expectations are. Conduct the needed training, and you could choose to do this even phase by phase. So train on BIA, then do the BIA. Train on risk assessment, then do the risk assessment. Train on strategies, train on plans. Either do it just in time, or once and for all do a 5-day lead implementer or something like that, and you have a sense of the shape of things to come. Next stage, impact of what can go wrong, and therefore timelines, and causes of what can go wrong, and therefore prevention and mitigation. Put in place controls. Based on this, What are my likely agreed backup plans? What's likely to work? Put that infrastructure solutions in place, set it up. Maybe issue RFPs, find providers so you know who can do the job for you in case you need it. Build the detailed plans around it. Who's going to do what to make it happen? Test those plans, like I gave the example of the puncture tire. Let's do it. Let's get audit to come in periodically and check that the right things are being done. So this is what the procedure said. Is that being done? Followed 100% to the T. Ongoing, let's look at it again. What needs to be fixed? What needs to be changed? Have objectives changed? Has the context changed? Get a management periodically, say once a quarter, 2 hours, maybe 5 minutes on every monthly management meeting on a regular basis. Get their inputs, keep them informed, take their help, remove bottlenecks, and just keep improving. So once you're on the merry-go-round, that's it. All we do is get better and better. So nothing very different from a typical standard implementation of something else. So as I said, the key elements in advance, what can cause the outage, and timelines in which we must respond. So what makes it different from common sense is the prior determination of reasonable timelines as expected by all key interested parties. And that's the other point that we can do in advance. Reach out, identify all those entities, reach out to them, validate your thoughts, and ensure that you're in sync. If you aren't, fix it. So when a real incident happens, your customers are fully in line with you, your stakeholders, your regulators, others. If you need a good structured framework, the ISO 22301 Global Business Continuity Standard, good one to follow. The same clauses like we have in all other ISO standards now. What critically changes is clause 8 operations. This has the nuts and bolts of business continuity, follows the PDCA, Plan, Do, Check Act, and many of you who deal with EduQuest already know and are familiar with standards. So I've spoken for a long time. I would like to wind up in about 5 minutes and bring on Remy, but a quick poll before we do that. So I'm going to stop sharing these results and open poll 2. Thank you. So that was fast. My colleague Daman says there's no end to learning. No one's perfect. We can always learn more. And certainly I learn something every time I teach. So I'm going to end the polling. 83% yes, 17% no, and that's understandable. I presume the people who say no already are experts, and we have quite a few on this call already. So just sharing the results, 83-17. And I'm going to stop sharing now. Going ahead. So at this point in time, I just want to show you some statistics. This is historical, what can cause outages. And what I like is the sheer diversity of incidents. It's everything literally. This is a slightly more updated July 2020 survey from Aon. And Aon, I believe, is, if I'm not wrong, John, is the company that you also work with perhaps in terms of solutions for insurance customers. Social media, 2% threats. Supply chain is a big issue, 17%. Climate change, natural disasters. While COVID-19 has happened, we've had zillions of floods. We've had huge cyclones. In the US, I believe, from a natural disaster year, 2020 has been one of the worst years ever. So silently, while COVID was happening, there's so much other chaos been happening in the world that we just can't rely only on this. We just need holistic protection, as simple as that. And 55% cybersecurity. So good time to reassess what are the threats. Not going to go through this in much detail, but I run a podcast. We've done about release 6 so far. I'm sitting on another 2, which I need to release fast. Some learnings that have come through, that the incident, the typical BI traditionally said the incident will be over fast. Now that's not the case anymore. So certainly we need to be aware of that. And our BIS just must be more cater for a much longer time. Maybe the The non-critical difference has now disappeared because over 13 months, even the non-critical is critical. For the same reason, more rigorous testing. In fact, maybe COVID-19 has been a full year of tests. What did maybe happen is a formal setting of goals and targets. But I mean, every day we've been tested perhaps with a new scenario. Need much better supply chain management, always a fail point, even more so now. Mental health has popped up as a big resilience issue. And if it's not yet in that organizational resilience 20 charts, then it should be soon. Work at home, great, sounds good, but there are huge risk challenges, efficient issues that should be recognized and may need to be fixed. Organization may need formal policies, governments may need policies, liabilities. The company I mentioned, 450,000 people globally. Many of them are working at home. So does that mean that they have now 450,000 offices globally? And the liability for anything happening in those offices to other, maybe the family? Partnerships between cyber and IT. Social distancing of data. I like that term. It came to me from Flick Marsh of IBM. Keep your data distinct and apart. Let your data wear a mask. So if you need, it doesn't get infected, and you can very quickly reuse it in the case of a cyber attack. Move towards org resilience. And a point that came through from Ralph Rosing in one of his webinars is, you may be all set, but your government may prevent you from doing so. So what do you do then? So government restrictions and force majeure, those would kick in. So quick summary of events. I'm now coming to the last two polls. And after this, I have two offers coming up. So do stick around. But just going to launch the last two set of polls. I hope some of you have learned at least one new fact in today's session. And can we invite you for more? So going to stop at this. Share results. We had 55 on, but I've stopped at 30 in the interest of time. So 97% yes, 94% yes. Thank you. That makes my day. Summary. If you're new to this domain, don't stop now. Hopefully you had some hiccups probably, but hopefully you're all right. You're where you are, but don't stop here. Please go ahead and complete the full journey. From our perspective, as I said, the top three in organization resilience, I may say, are BCM, crisis and risk. Do them all. This, of course, was focusing on BCM, and we can cover a bit more on the others. Create permanent resilience. If you need guidance, training, implementation, consulting support, let us know. We can help. Two offers coming up. We are running a BCM course through FQA UK, certified by FQA UK. Running this in February 23 to 25. 3-day course. If you're a newbie, I will probably be conducting it. Could be also Chris, who's on this call. We are also talking to Chris about being an instructor for this. So if you're new to BCM, come in and take a look. I hope this will give you a good idea of the way forward. So get in touch with the team. Second offer, we are running a summit on the 17th and 18th of March. Day one is free. Fantastic lineup. This is a bit of an eye test out here. So you probably can't read the designations, but critically they are Chris on the call is Industry Personality of the Year for Australasia. Ron Kemps is a BCM head based in the US. He's speaking. John from Inoni on the call is an FBCI. So we've got global heads, FBCI's Hall of Fame winners, a great lineup. So attend for free on day one. This is the link to register on. So do that today if you can before you forget. Day two is paid. Day two is a slightly enhanced and a slightly more serious session, more packed in. So if you want to come in for free, come in on day one. If you're willing to pay to learn, come in on day two. And I've already asked this question. So I think 96% said yes. Thank you so much. With that, I'm bit behind schedule, about 6 minutes behind. So apologies, Remy, but quickly turning it over to you and open for Q&A. I'll, in the meantime, check the chat line in case there are any questions. So quickly open to you, Remy, and then I'm going to stop my screen share and I'm going to go onto the chat to just check.
Good afternoon, everyone. Can all of you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. For if you have this is the Q&A session. If you have any queries, don't mind. Can you all either type it in the chat group, or you can actually unmute yourself and let us know what queries do you all have.
Either I've been absolutely crystal clear, which is maybe not likely, probably, but feel free to just ask any question. To me, it's important that you get the value that you're wanting out of the session.
Hi, this is Suraj. Maybe it is not related to the webinar that we are having, but I wanted to ask about the BIA. How can the asset inventory will help us during the time of PCMS program management?
It's a great question, Suraj, and I have a real life answer. So I have two perspectives on this. One is you need to have those assets ready. So let me give you an example. A bank has, when you cash a check in a bank, they need to check that the check is not forged. So they do it in ultraviolet light. So if you were trying to do the clearing from other place and it did not have this ultraviolet mechanism, you could end up in cashing a forged check. And if you encash a forged check, there's a good chance that it will be a direct hit to the bottom line of the bank. And there could be fines and penalties. So if you don't have that ultraviolet, your clearing process is your check encashment process is deficient. What we discovered in the COVID-19 is that the typical BIA or the typical business continuity approach said only certain people need to be available because the others we get time to bring things back up and we'll manage them. So let's only put in place readiness for 30% approximately. With the other 70%, we'll figure it out later. With COVID-19, suddenly you had 100% having to work at home. So there was a gap for the balance 70%. It took some time for them to get their infrastructure in place to be operational. So take licenses, software licenses. Who needs what software licenses, which versions, what's paid for, what's not paid for, is it authorized, unauthorized, licensed, unlicensed, liabilities. So the simple answer is by having the details in advance, you know where you are, you don't have any last minute panic, and you can do things in a planned manner. So I hope I have answered your question.
Thank you. Thank you.
Little to add that might help you. I'm John. It's quite easy or possible to build a model of assets in a business, all the dependencies between them. And I've worked with Diraj building this for companies in the region. So just to answer exactly at a lower level, you can build a layered model of an organization in this way and get a very, very clear view, and it will build a BIA. If you want to know more about it, I mean, talk to Diraj. He's worked with me on this. Hope that helps.
Thank you. So there's a question from Dinesh. With many companies operating for a hybrid model, how's data privacy and individual private information taken care? Great point, Dinesh. My simple answer is kind of, it's the company's perspective to consider these issues. And at least that's why, in fact, I look at business continuity like an inverted iceberg. In a typical iceberg, it's 90% below the surface probably and only a little bit visible. In business continuity, it's the opposite. You may do 90% of the work in advance and hopefully never have an issue. In fact, if your 90% is good, maybe you prevent the 10% from going wrong. So the key here is to have brought these issues in advance. They are not rocket science, but deal with them in advance in a planned manner, think them through, do your research, talk to other people, and we'll get all the answers we need. Whereas assume that there's a fire raging. In the midst of a fire raging, there's first of all psychological shock. So as it is, we are kind of traumatized and under pressure. It's almost, I liken it to a warlike situation. If you look at a war movie, bullets flying back and forth, and you started to do something, and suddenly you have to change direction and run for cover. That's what a real incident is like. So the key issue about business continuity is advanced planning. Gives you time to raise the key issues, to talk them through with the key stakeholders, and to do everything in a planned and measured manner. Like the saying, the time to buy an umbrella is not when it rains. It's before it rains, because when it's raining, one is you can't go out and buy it. And secondly, when you go and buy it and you get all drenched, you realize someone else has bought all the umbrellas and you have nothing left. So in all of these, I would say the key issue is to raise it in advance, talk it through with the management. Management is management because they are smart, they know what they're doing, and that gives enough visibility and flexibility to do the right things at the right time. So any other questions? So what I can do is just quickly go on to just the slides with the information. So I'm just going to share screen again. I see one more question on the chat. I'll just take a look. I think nothing new there. Just circling back, if anyone's interested in the course, do let Educast know or let us know. If you'd like to attend the summit, day one is free. This is the link, so please go and register. If you have any questions, write to us. That's the ID to write to. The difference between day one, day two, what can you get, etc. Quite a few freebies actually with that. Couple of free workshops, a few some e-learning packages. So that's our contact details. And with that, Remy, over to you.
Thank you very much, Dheeraj. I want to thank Dheeraj for the wonderful sharing, and I want to close the session by saying sometimes it's almost impossible to predict the challenges that we face on any given day, let alone week or months into the future. And in this volatile, uncertain, complex, and ambiguous reality, in short, VUCA, personal resilience is one of the most powerful capabilities we need to have in order to succeed. But the good thing is, resilience per se, the capability to deal with and bounce from challenges, is a capability that we can develop. On that note, I would like to thank all of you for your time, and I really hope you had a wonderful session with us here. Thank you very much. So if you have any other queries, Dheeraj has actually shared the slide. You can either write to consulting@Eduquest or the other website that was given at dheeraj@continuityandresilience.com.
Thank you. So with that, we wind up.
Yes.
Thank you so much, everyone.
Thank you, everyone, for your time.
Just a question. Is it possible to bring on the camera so we can take a quick group photograph?
Okay, don't mind.
Possible, I appreciate it.
Can all of y'all?
Thanks, Greg, Josie, Isam, Tanveer, Rishikesh, Sridhar.
Mr. Lal, can you close the slide?
So will you take over as host, Chanchal? Shall I pass it to you?
Yeah. Thank you, everyone.
Done?
I am not able to come on the camera.
Okay.
So probably it's a good also for me because I'm probably not in that shape. Yeah, it was a really interesting sessions, and I hope everybody got something new, even those who have attended similar sort of a training or workshop. And hopefully we are having similar seminar in very soon. Looking forward to see you in the March event. That is a major event we are planning, and hopefully it will be a good session for all of us. Thank you.
Cameras at the moment. Could you unblock them,
Take care.
Tanch?
Bye-bye. Thank you.
Thank you.